Hey everyone, welcome back to The Healed Trader. All right, so today's episode is all about starting a business. It's something I embarked on about 6 years ago. It was pretty damn scary, and it's been a roller coaster ride along the way. But in this is a bit of a different episode. I'm going to talk to a few people I've kind of got to know along the way, partners, colleagues who have kind of experienced the same thing. And just talk about, what drove them to do that and some of their experiences around starting a business. So I've got Dave here with me. Hey, man.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. So you've obviously done it. You've taken the leap to entrepreneurship and starting a business.
Yeah.
How has that felt for you? Like, what kind of drove you to do that in the first place? And
Yeah, I guess slightly different for me in that, like, the businesses that I've started, I've still been employed, so I've not completely lost the safety net of income to do it, but I've found a way to combine, doing all the things together. But I guess there's a comparison in terms of leap of going from your big salary safety job in a bank, to working in tech startups and doing all that, and then within that started like a couple of my own businesses within that. Is
that what you would advise people to kind of do? Because it's very scary to just quit your job and start a business and not know if it's going to work. Like, would you recommend people kind of do it that way, where they keep their job but they start the kind of side hustle and they have the safety net, but once they start to see that it builds traction, then maybe they can switch over?
Yeah, like absolutely, because there's a practicality like around that, right? That especially if you've got families and stuff you need to look after, you can't just go, right, let's do it and take the risk. And
well, if you've got the capital, you can.
If you've got the capital, yeah. Like, and I think if you got I've always even when I left banking, kind of in my mind was like, how long have I got without earning money before it becomes a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to decide what you're comfortable with on that. Like, is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? If I don't earn,
is it 10 years?
Yeah. Like we'll see. But I think definitely we've spoken a bit around spiritual journey and stuff like that. I couldn't have done what I do now 15 years ago or even 10 years ago. I've had to mentally kind of deal with issues I would have had around money, security and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
I had to mentally be in a better place where I was more comfortable with the risks around that and my attitude towards risk, to be able to not be constantly stressed out by the volatility and uncertainty that I'm in now, and I'm still in now. I think
that boils down. I mean, I experienced a similar thing, right? And it was, I was always very motivated by money. That was the way I was brought up, and security was a huge thing, right? And then to then kind of lose that security and that massive safety net of a big old salary from a bank, and pursue something that is earning you tiny fraction of what you were earning. How do you stomach that, right? How do you take it? And the only way I was able to take it was that I did something that I was truly, truly passionate about, right? I did something that I would have done for free, basically, right? I wasn't doing it for the money.
Yeah.
I was doing it because this is just something that I really want to do, right? And I found that really helped me in the ups and downs, because you start a business and you're all excited and you get a few deals, you get a few bits of business. You're like, yeah, this is great. I'm doing what I want to do. And then suddenly it goes quiet for 3 months or 6 months, and you think, shit, what have I done?
Yeah.
Because you eat what you kill. It's not like the salary is just going to come every single month, right? In a business, if you don't have revenues, you don't make any money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had many periods like that in the last 6 years, right? And the only way I was able to get through it, and that uncertainty and that feeling of, oh shit, this isn't really making me anything, well, at least I woke up in the morning loving what I wanted to do, what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel through my experience that if you don't have the passion driving you to do that business, you're not going to be able to ride out those tough times, and those dips on the roller coaster are just going to shake you off.
Yeah. And there's, I think I've heard, if you know Stephen Bartlett from Darius Dale, and
big fan of that podcast.
Yeah, and I say from that he's had huge successful businesses and stuff. And he talks about never should I forget he phrased it really well, but never should the fear of the uncertainty, when that shouldn't be. I think it's like that shouldn't be bigger than like the kind of known pain of like the certainty that of the situation that you're in. And when that changes, when your current situation that I was in, I think you were in a bank, when it's like the kind of the painful certainty, like the pain that you kind of feel in the certainty. Mm-hmm. Do you know what? It's like you get to a point where you're like, fuck it, I'm willing to live with the uncertainty and the fear that goes with that uncertainty.
The monotony of what you're going to do and how you just hate doing it and waking up for it every day.
Yeah, so I think for me that kind of, that balance flipped where it's like, do you know what? I'd rather live in the state of fear and uncertainty than the pain of the certain life that I'm currently living.
Yeah, because you're just so unfulfilled and you just you don't have a purpose.
Yeah,
right.
I think the other thing that I would say is that first as well, when you've got your own business, like, and it's really boring and practical, but from a tax point of view and stuff like that, you realise when you're employed, like how much like you gets just taken away from you through tax and stuff.
Yeah.
So actually, there's like, you don't have to earn as much like top line revenue as what you were earning to have similar lifestyle. I think the other thing as well, like you realise quite quickly the things that you can comfortably live without. That there's a lot of waste that goes on when it's just there, and if you there's lots of things that you could cut out that probably didn't really add that much value to your life, in a way. So I think there's those things, and then the third thing is that when you're forced to be like resourceful, it's amazing how once your awareness is open to, I need to be open to opportunities. It's amazing what's out there, because for a lot of years I used to be like, I work in this like high paid job in a bank. Where could I ever earn like that money again to live the lifestyle that I'm living? Like, it was just like there's no, like, I felt so siloed in what I was doing that there's nothing else. And my wife used to say to me, like, there's loads of things you could do. Like, and she was from a very entrepreneurial background growing up, and she'd be like, there's loads of things you could do. I'd be like, yeah, but what? And when I was in that like kind of narrow,
skill set is defined.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you come out of that world and the opportunities start to reveal themselves.
We mentioned this last week, right? We said it's like when you start doing exactly what you said and being more creative in your day to day, because you're building something. Right?
Yeah.
And you're not just got this like pigeonhole where you have to do this task every day, this list of tasks, this to-do list. Now you're being more open-minded. You're actually networking and connecting with people to see if there's any synergies between your business and their business, and can you complement each other, and can you build relationships with other people who are also entrepreneurs and might think differently to you, right? And that is just an enjoyable thing to be doing anyway, right? In itself, that's not a purpose per se, but it is certainly more fulfilling and satisfying than just going in, same office every day, doing the same list of things,
Yeah. I think as well, like when you sort of kind of branch out on your own, I actually think it forces you to live like more in the now, more in the moment, because firstly, like the big picture's too daunting, and like you kind of, in terms of developing that like resilience,
that's a good point.
You kind of just keep having to deal with each disaster as it comes.
You can't think too big picture or too long term.
Yeah,
because you're just firefighting all day anyway. Right, of what's going on now.
Yeah, like even like if I think about like being in a startup, like you think in terms of what's the runway we've got? Like, is it 18 months? And like, funny enough, if you're in a startup and you've got 18 months runway, that seemed like it's quite a lot. I'll say to friends who work in a business, if I said to them, yeah, we're in a good position, we've got like 18 months, 2-year runway,
till we run out of money,
and they'd be like, what? Like, so yeah, but like I can't think about that. We have to just do what we do now, and hope we don't get to the end of the runway. But like, if we do, we'll have to worry about that then. But so it kind of forces you to, again, just keep working on what we can work on, have the big picture in terms of where we know directionally where we want to go, but we keep working on what we work on. And that's when, like, it's bloody hard. It is really hard. Like, it's not, and it's definitely not a journey for everyone.
Yeah, you can't coast through it. Basically.
No, but you have to, you go, right, we know where we want to go, and we just keep turning up every day, and we just take each day as it comes, and we keep working on those problems. But again, I think the growth as a person that installs is like huge, because I just think it builds your resilience in everything in life, that you kind of just, And you almost live with an expectation of, right, there's got to be something, like nothing comes easy in this game. And then hopefully you look back in 10 years time, whatever, and you've had the success and you go, it looks easy now, but yeah, each day was just hard fought.
I mean, I was going to ask you in closing, like, what do you think you've learned about yourself through that process, through being involved in startups, through being more entrepreneurial? Has it taught you anything about yourself?
I think that I'm more resilient than you think you are. I think, yeah, I know now that I can sort of stand a lot. I used to live in fear for years of like being made redundant and things like that. I'm now more comfortable around that because I'm like, I know I'll be okay, and I know I'm resourceful enough to like figure it out when I need to, and that really helps me sleep at night. I think I've learned that life kind of has a way of working itself out as well. So amidst that uncertainty, you just kind of keep with the vision of how you want your life to be, and trust in it working out a little bit.
And now that you are in that entrepreneurial mindset, do you feel like you can ever go back?
No, and that's the thing, you wouldn't. And I think partly that is because of the person you've become wouldn't fit back in that box anymore.
They'd hate it even more.
Yeah, they'd hate it even more.
Because there's something inside you that was hating it anyway. You needed to let out and let free, and that's out the box. To then try and get that back in the box is impossible.
Yeah, you sort of couldn't do it, and you get used to.
That resonates with me. Like I just can't see it, like, ever. No matter how desperate I am for money, let's say this business doesn't work out, whatever. I just cannot see myself ever wanting to go back to a bank, right? Like, to be honest, I've been out for so long now that I don't think I could get back in even if I wanted to, right? But like, it's so far removed from what I would want to spend my life doing now that I'm in my mid-40s. And one last point is that the flexibility, whilst you can never really let go of it, whilst it's very hard to switch off when you're a business owner, because you might be firefighting because you've got a customer coming through needing support at like midnight or whatever, and you're like, oh shit, I need to get someone to look at this or whatever, right? The beauty of it, though, is that you can allocate your time and resources how you see fit. So if I've got kids and I want to take them to school, I can do that, and I can start my day at 9:30 or 10 or whatever because I want to do the school run, and I can put them to bed at like 7 or 8, but then I might have to work till like 11 because for a couple of hours. But that flexibility is huge because it allows you to live your life on your terms and prioritize the things that you want to prioritize. And at the same time, continue building your baby or whatever your business is, but just fitting in the things that really matter to you, like family, like relationships, like kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, cheers. It's like I said, slightly different episode today because I figured I know quite a few people who have got into this business game. So let's hear what some of the others had to say. So, Tony, man, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have on the business side of things. So, 2016, 7-8 years?
Yeah, Election Day, 2016, the day before Election Day, I published a note saying Trump was about to win the presidency and the world was going to change and be completely batshit crazy for a little while. And I guess I got what I was looking for.
Right. And you'd been in a career in finance for how many years before that?
20, I guess, from 1991 right up to 2016. So 25 years on the street, you can call it. Spent the bulk of it, I guess, 6 years at one shop at Goldman Sachs. That was kind of the longest run in one place. So yeah, 25 years in the street and then finally ripped the Band-Aid off.
And did you always have a little itch, like a little inkling that you wanted to start up something for yourself? Because I know I had that itch for a few years before I finally jumped off the cliff. But how about you?
Yeah, it's my second venture at trying to go out on my own. When I left Goldman Sachs trading commodities, I went into my own venture trying to set up a hedge fund like trading firm called Machine Trading, and it lived for a year and a half basically. And luckily it wasn't a big losing venture. It was kind of like it took us forever to figure out how to make money, and we made some money, and then it took us, we were burning through so much commission dollars that it was chewing into our profits, and we kind of just walked away from the thing as a big kind of scratch, kind of an operation. And then I went back and worked for a couple different firms as a sales trader. and realized that that was not going to have a long runway, and nor did I enjoy the last 4 or 5 years of it. And so going out on my own was a really, really good thing, sort of mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, for me, every way you can think about it.
But like when you tried it and then it didn't work out, did that kind of put you off? Or were you like, you know what, it didn't work out, but there's something about this that speaks to me that I really enjoy. I'm definitely going to have another stab at it.
Yeah, Imran, that's exactly it. When I had to sort of fold up that operation and go back and work for the man, so to speak, I was like, I think I'm going to get another look at this. And when I do, I'm going to make sure that I approach it differently. I want to build a more sustainable business than shooting from the hip trading, and build something where I can stack chips and that's got some longevity. And so, like, when the opportunity then came around, which was basically forced out of frustration, I had a very different approach to it.
Right. So you learned from those things that didn't work, and you're like, okay, like you had plenty of time to think that through because you actually did have a paycheck for a little while, and then you kind of put those things into place and then go for it. And now you've got some real insight from what doesn't work and what is more likely to work.
Yeah, I wanted to own. I knew that I loved owning and running a business, but I realized that pushing money around is not sustainable, right? Like being a trader and just sitting there and facing markets and saying, I'm going to battle them all day, every day. You don't produce anything. You don't make anybody smile, right? You don't create goodwill. You
make them smile if they make money, though, surely.
Yeah, well, if you trade in someone else's money, sure, you're making them smile, but that's a different relationship thing, and you're not always going to be able to make money forever, and you're not going to be able to keep investors happy forever, no matter what.
True. So I guess it's not just about making other people smile; it's also about making yourself smile, right? You got to do something that speaks to your heart, speaks to your soul, and you can get up in the morning and want to do that every day, right?
Yeah, it's something more fulfilling, Imran. I kind of get a chuckle out of people on FinTwit or people in finance that poke fun at sort of newsletter authors like me and Jared Dillian and Tom Thornton and say, if you guys were so smart and so good at markets, why do you have to write a newsletter? Why don't you just sit there and trade and get rich, And it's like, because we like helping people and building an actual business, you idiots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, I guess that's people who haven't been in the game in a big way for a long period of time. They haven't experienced the burnout that goes with that, right? The intensity of that role where you feel every P&L swing and the stress that comes with that and the inability to really ever switch off from that. I mean, it's like footballers quit at 35. Why?
Yeah.
Because that job is so demanding on their physique, right? I would say to some extent being a trader is very, very demanding, the intensity of that on your mind, right? And you do experience, I mean, I've experienced it. I've been a trader for over 20 years, so I know exactly what that feels like. And large part of why I do what I do, and I would never want to go back to a seat, certainly in a bank. A fun seat, maybe I'd consider it, who knows, one day, but like just that intensity, when you've got young kids and you've got other priorities in your life, you don't need that intensity, like taking up all your headspace, right?
You're so right, Imran. I was trying to raise a family at that time, and living on the emotional roller coaster of P&L swings is not a way to live a calm, mindful, peaceful life.
100%.
You know what I mean? You're literally just throwing, and what I wanted to do by starting a new business that sold something was to squash the professional volatility in my life. You know what I mean? The extremes were so extremes. Oh my God, I'm losing money. I'm doing so amazing. I only have to do this for 5 more years and I'll be done. And thinking crazy thoughts like that come along with making money and thinking you're smart. And then on the downside, you can give all of that money back and be down money and be like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. Like, I don't know if I should put another trade on. I've been so wrong lately, And so that roller coaster.
Okay. But I will say it's a different kind of a roller coaster. So I agree with you. The P&L roller coaster is extreme. But correct me if I'm wrong, like my experience of running a business, that's a freaking roller coaster too, because you start a business, you think you're on the trajectory, you've nailed the business model, it makes a load of sense, and then something happens and you have to pivot and you have to reorientate your business. You have to almost start again. And it's like, I've had to do that about 5 times. I've only been going for 6 years. So for me, it's been a roller coaster too on that front.
Being an entrepreneur is its own roller coaster. I admit that, and especially foraging, your frontier move into entrepreneurship. Like, it took me 3 years to figure out things that I didn't even realize that I didn't even know. You know what I mean? Like, you have to sort of get your sea legs, and you go, that progression from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously competent, right? To unconsciously competent, right? That is something that a path that you have to get through, right? And you don't even realize it at the beginning that you don't even know what you're doing, kind of thing, And so,
yeah,
that roller coaster is one thing, but at least owning a business, Imran, you sort of have, you think of the job, the trading job as you're sitting at the blackjack table constantly just trying to make money. The thing about selling a product is you have an automatic chip replenisher on your business, right? Like, people are renewing and they're coming back to read more. And so you've got kind of a slowly growing platform from which to, look at the markets and trade and do things on a little bit of a different level than if you're sitting in your own office facing nobody except the markets and just taking risk, right? There's a very, very big difference. I have a storefront now where people come and go. Yeah. And, those relationships are part of really what fulfills and sustains this endeavor a lot more than being in a room by yourself, banging your head against the screen.
Yeah, there's a consistency there, isn't there? There's like, this is what I do, this is what I produce. It kind of keeps me honest because it's like a repeatable process that I come and I do every day. And then the people who come and pay me for that, they respond, they like that service, they like that process, and they learn from it, it benefits them, it helps them. And actually the interactions you have and the feedback that you get from those people keeps you motivated and keeps you going, because you actually get a sense of satisfaction that, yes, people appreciate what I'm doing and it's helping them manage their money and it's helping them understand what's going on. I'm giving them the benefit of my decades of experience, and it's exactly what you set out to do, basically, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. So it's that, it's that literal joy of helping people. You and I sit down in front of the screens and we have some ideas where to look and where to chase money and how to manage risk. And you realize that are people that don't have that experience, and they don't turn on the screen and say, oh, here's the trade right here. What we got to do is we got to get into this because that's going here and that's going there. They don't know that, And so if you can genuinely present, a way for them to analyze markets coherently and be able to participate in a trade, and some of the things that we've done, I've really narrated markets quite a bit through my Slack channel, where we have like 150 salivating traders that are constantly contributing information on a daily basis. But that sort of bond that we have within the subscriber base is the most special thing in the world to me that I've created through this. And it's for the community, the trading community. Like my Slack channel, I go down, I come downstairs here into my office, and the first thing I look at is my Slack channel, because that's literally me landing on the trading desk every morning and saying, hello, what's up, everybody? How are we doing today? Right?
Well, you're running a global trading desk, basically, and they're all effectively like your juniors. You're the head of the desk, giving them some idea of where you're steering the ship, but they're doing their own things. They've got their own ideas. They like bouncing it off you. It feels like a trading desk, right?
It really does. The banter is there. The banter is there all day long. What do you think of this? Wow, this is getting scary. Oh my God, the VIX is 18 bid. What do we do? It's really, it draws out. It's just like having 20 sets of eyes on one market, and when people's emotions get tweaked, they go right into the Slack and say, okay, let me get some feedback here, So that has been really, really cool, because it's a great sentiment indicator. It's a great, it's a great way to instruct. It's a great way to reach a lot of people at once, and they really appreciate it. So it's that kind of thing, Imran, where for every person that kind of tries your flavor of ice cream and then bails out, subscribes and then unsubscribes, there's one or two people that are like, man, reading this note every day really helps me, man. And I don't think that I ever want to not read this. So I'm going to stick with you for several years. And then, your relationship gets to the next level, and people literally, as long as they've got money in an account that they're in charge of, they're going to read the Navigator every day. And so that's the kind of audience that I'm trying to build bigger and bigger every day,
Yeah. And then back to the sort of starting a business point, like, how do you think it's changed you as a person and filtered through to the rest of your life? Or has it?
Yeah, it has. I'd say it has calmed my temperament quite a bit and slowed down the pace of my life, which I really, really enjoy now as I get into my mid-50s. Like, I'm not built to be on the 7 o'clock train in the morning and be on the 7 o'clock train home anymore. So this, the opportunity to, you've got your focus point on markets, right, from bell to bell. And then outside of that, it's all what you make it, So that's the kind of thing where, you kind of remove the assholes from your life, and you remove the people that you have to work for that you don't respect and that you don't think have any value other than being middlemen. And you get to go directly to the clients that pay you, and you don't have to share your paycheck with anybody else. And so that's why that sort of risk reward for a trader, like when that reward is out there, that's the thing that gets you to say, yeah, you know what? I'll take a pay cut down to 0 and start fresh, because if this works, I've got an enormous piece of freedom. I've got peace of mind. I have the asset of owning a business that generates revenue with very few expenses.
Because exactly, there's no overheads. It's all coming from here, right?
There's no overhead. I mean, if I partnered with somebody that's my partner in the business that covers my Bloomberg in exchange for the note that that I send him and he can send to his clients. We have a perfectly symbiotic relationship. Everybody's happy, and that lowers my overhead even further. So now I'm like, chomping at the bit to, maximize profits and revenues and figure out different revenue streams and different ways, which are really just different ways to help people, quite honestly.
Last question. Do you wish you did it sooner?
That's a great question, and I probably do, and the reality is that I do, but I think that in order to build the fire in you that you need to really understand that working for yourself means working for yourself and wearing every hat, like, you wish you had done it sooner, but you kind of have to be pushed to a point of max frustration with something else first. And I honestly think that it really was worth it for me to put those 25 years in on the street and at least, gather all of that intelligence and networking and community and knowledge of being in the markets. And then finally going off on my own and saying, you know what, I don't want to have to work for anybody else. And while, like, I just did this in 2016, maybe I could have started earlier, but I really needed to build the fire of saying, I am so sick of working for somebody else and sharing my paycheck and my commission dollars. Like, I can't take it anymore. So you kind of have to get to that and get to max frustration and say, that's it. I'm breaking, the only way out is through. The only way out of this frustration is through, and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going to start off with really tiny amount of revenues that I can't even survive on, but a viable business model. And from there, I think I can grow it. And then, when you get proof of concept, then you're like, thank God this worked, and you're a different person going forward. So there's been a huge transformation. I'm still managing it. I still manage the ups and downs of sort of not knowing what my next move should be as an entrepreneur, because nobody writes that path for you. When you're running your own business, you can either sit there and kind of coast down the slightly downhill slope, or you can try to pick up some momentum and really go after it, and really, really get some momentum behind you. And so you kind of pick your own speed, and you realize that you get out of it what you put into it. And the more you put in, the more rewarding and involved it gets. So that's kind of the way I'm trying to push it.
Cool, man. Always a pleasure catching up with you, dude.
Imran, you're the best, man. I love the way you guide in these interviews. You talk about some really important stuff, so thank you.
Pleasure. See you soon, yeah?
Right on, brother.
Yeah. So tell us, man, like, take us back to the time when you kind of decided you want to branch out and do something entrepreneurial. Was that a long time coming? How was...
Well, I'd done the one entrepreneurial move, which was I had left the city, left working in finance, and started writing macro research before anybody was doing that. And moved country, did all of this stuff. But I lived in Spain for 10 years. And what I missed was the intellectual stimulation of being around people doing amazing stuff that you get when you're living in a bigger city or you're working on a trading floor at a hedge fund. And I started thinking, I can do more than this, than just writing research. I could do something else. And so I started writing a list of all the ideas in my head. And one of them was like a family office network. The other was what ended up being Real Vision. And some of them I've come back to later and still pursued them. And then it's really around what gets you across the line, because everyone's got an idea. What's hard is actually to follow through and start something.
That's right. An idea is not a business, right? I've had so many people really talk like that. Yeah. You know, you can have the inception of an idea is not enough. You have to care about that idea enough to go through the pain. And there's so much pain to get it to something that you can, that even looks and smells a little bit like a business.
Yeah. Even just to start it is pain. You know, so if you think of Real Vision, we're going to create long form videos. Okay. They didn't exist. There was no long form finance videos. It used to be short form and advertising led. Netflix had only just launched. YouTube was in its infancy. So we need to figure out how to film video. Never done that before. How to distribute it. What platform. How to take billings from people. Will people give a shit? Who to interview on the platform. All of this stuff. Goes from an idea of, hey, we could just do this to, okay, this is a real problem. We ended up getting a development agency in London to build the platform. Looked beautiful, didn't fucking work. And $1 million later, we had to scrap it and rebuild it.
And that's just it. Like, it's constant trial and error. Like, what I find is, if you're someone who's afraid of failure, if you're someone who can't handle failure and sees it as a negative thing, you're not going to be able to run a business, right? Because it is just constantly failing and trying again, failing and pivoting, failing quickly if you can, because then you don't spend 3 years doing something that ends up a dead end.
And also, running a business is kind of like a trading book. It's in fact very similar. Is you actually don't remember the victories. All you remember is the pain. Only remember all of the failing you have to do, because you fail 10 times and win 1 time, or whatever the stats are. And you know, the psychological benefit of a winning trade, unless it's a life-changing trade, really gets lost because of the death by 1,000 cuts or the big fuck-ups you've made. And running a business is the same. It's not rewarding where you just think you're winning. All you can see is the problems. Or that's all you can ever see, because it's your job. If you're the CEO or the co-founder, your job is to solve the problems.
So then what keeps you going?
Oh, that's the other thing, is running a business, nobody thanks you. Nobody says good job.
You're really putting people off, by the way, about running a business.
Well, because to your point, is it's hard, right? There's nobody saying to you, hey, you've done a great job today. All you get is people coming to you with complaints. This isn't working, that's not working, whatever it may be. So it takes a certain fortitude. So the point I was trying to get across is you need to decide what kind of person you are. If you're the person who likes direction and executes, don't start a business.
Right.
If you have a high pain tolerance, start a business. Never go into it with, oh, we're all going to be millionaires. You have to go into it saying, I think this is going to matter, and I'm going to get it across the line, whatever it takes. If you're that kind of person, okay, that's different.
But apart from the pain tolerance, what about what's driving you to do it in the first place, right? So yes, you need pain tolerance to be able to survive, to be able to last it out, right? but what's the thing that's driving you to do it?
So everything I do, I always have an image of somebody in my head. Every time I write Global Macro Investor, I just happen to think of one of the members who is reading it, thinking, would they enjoy this? What question would they ask? Have I answered this fully? With Real Vision, it's like, how can we affect change in people's lives? And if the best feedback mechanism I've got is not subscribers and stuff like that, it's actually the fact that I get stopped in the street all across the world. I was in a beach town in Portugal last week, and some guy screeched to a halt in his car in a parking lot of a restaurant at night and goes, "Oh my God, you're Raoul Pal. I just want to say thank you." Portuguese guy. I was in Marrakesh checking out of a hotel, and the head of guest relations just said, "Oh, by the way, thank you." And I'm like, okay, that is the true north. If you keep those people in your head, your customer, and think about them all the time. What are you trying to do for them? That's the reward, and that's what keeps you going, and that's what gets you on the straight path. Don't think about yourself. You don't actually matter in the equation. You're a conduit for your idea and your customers. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, well, I guess, it's that purpose that you're following, right? Like you say, it's the purpose that is greater than you and what you're going to get out of it, right? And you're right. The feedback's huge. I mean, I've definitely had some of that feedback. Not people stopping me in the street. I'm not quite to your level of
you're just not as tall as me, that's all.
Notoriety. But I've had, direct messages and stuff from people who have benefited and learned from my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the output is you get subscribers or you get people joining your community because you're doing the right job. Whenever you appear on Real Vision, people really like what you do. You help them, right? You've got knowledge and you're delivering knowledge back to them in a way that they can understand, that will help them become better investors. Okay, that's really what you do. You're a conduit of knowledge, and you share it with people in a way that they understand. Okay, that's purposeful. It has a real meaning behind it. And that's why you too have gone through pain, because you're like, I can help people here. And if I get it right, the outcome will be you'll make money.
Yeah, but it's funny because most of the people who I know that are still in finance are like saying, you're struggling to make ends meet with this business. And it's like, why don't you come back? You can make more money, blah, blah, blah. And actually, that's kind of debatable now, given that I've been out for 6 years. But it's like, what they don't understand is that once you've moved away from banking where you had no purpose whatsoever, and now you've found a purpose and a mission, and you've felt what it feels like to help people who would never have, learned what you taught them, right? Or, there's not that many avenues for them to learn that. And then they appreciate it and they actually give you that feedback. That's not something you can walk away from easily, I don't think, It's
not. And you're right. When you're in finance, you don't really have a purpose. The purpose is you and how much money you can make. Sure, you might think about your clients and making sure that they do well, but at a societal level, you're not really helping. Sure, you might have helped some pension plan, whatever, but it's not the same as individuals, helping individuals.
That's right.
But then you think of that and think of all of the experience you gained working in finance has now enabled you to do something else with it. So you've repackaged that knowledge and you can now give it to others. And yes, it's not a straightforward path, particularly because you're in options and people don't understand that yet. They don't understand how to do it. So it's hard. Now, also, sometimes within that journey, you may say to yourself, is this everything I should be doing? Like, does it just have to be options? What else do I know? What else do people need help with? And, you find that over time, businesses morph. Because maybe your initial idea is not the idea. Maybe it's one of the ideas en route to the idea.
Yeah, well, this is it. I think when you start to try out a business, what you learn is you have to be evolving. You have to be willing to see what works, what doesn't work, try different things. it's like an iterative process, right? And so the market or whatever, and not just the market telling you what the people want, basically, right? It's also about how you feel inside, right? Like, do I feel good waking up in the morning and spending my time doing this? And when, at the start of the business, you probably do, because you're excited about the idea you've just come up with. And so you go for it, and it is exciting, especially if you've got partners that you're working with and building something. But at some point in that journey, you might start to, if you're conscious about how you're feeling, you might start to feel, I've somehow found myself doing something that I don't want to do anymore, because I've kind of pivoted because my product or my idea wasn't selling. So I thought I'd pivot to a place where, this is what people want, although that might not be aligned with what I actually want to do and what I believe in, right? And I think I've experienced that a couple of times through this journey, where I'm like just taking a step back and reevaluating and say, does this feel right? And if the answer is no, then I think you have to kind of take stock and decide what will feel right, and go again, basically.
Yeah, we've done that several times at Real Vision, but on a major scale. It was in 2020. Somebody asked me to read a book called The Content Trap, and it was eye-opening, which is like, content is almost zero in value because anybody can make it, and it's everywhere, and it's free.
Especially now with AI, right?
And now it's super hard to be in that game, and so it's a race to the bottom. So then the book looked at businesses that have built a moat, let's say The Economist, where people subscribe to The Economist and don't even read it, just because it's like a brand good to them, right? It's like a Rolex watch. You don't buy a Rolex to tell the time. You buy it because you want to signal something. And The Economist is the same. So it goes through a whole bunch of these, and it made me sit back and think, what have I actually built? And I realized what we built was a community.
That's right.
I'm like, okay, this is the big unlock, because communities have a moat. So how do I lean into that? And that allowed the business to move forwards much further than fighting what was the existing idea, which was we create video content and we make better video content than anybody so we can charge for it. That wasn't going to work.
But the beauty of the community, if you immerse yourself in that community, is that you connect with that community, right? And connection ultimately is what we're all seeking in life, right? So if you can kind of help people connect with each other and you connect with them as well, it just becomes that much more fulfilling a career to be spending your time doing.
So never underestimate the power of a network. So Global Macro Investor is a research service, but we end up having these annual events where people get together. So they get to meet each other. And before you know it, you become friends with a bunch of people and it unlocks doors. What I think about Real Vision, the original investors in Real Vision were all Global Macro Investor subscribers.
Right.
They helped the business get off the ground. And then they've all done business with each other. They've become ideas. We've gone to friends, the weddings and stuff. Before you know it, your network is where the value is. Because then you can reach out to your network. Like I can reach out to you, you can reach out to me and say, hey, listen, I'm trying to think this thing through. Or I've got a great idea. Do you want to do something together with this? That is powerful. Without a network, you don't get that. And that's one of the things about sitting behind a screen trading at home versus joining a community. It changes everything. Even just at a psychological level of, life is not always easy, but having people around you makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of these trading communities. They all just like spend time talking about how much they're losing on the trades and making, it's almost like a competition of who lost the most money today.
Therapy.
Make a joke out of it. Yeah, exactly. And it gets you through it because you're sitting, if you're sitting there at home on your own losing money, you're probably feeling a bit suicidal at times. Whereas if you've got a community, that's not the case.
And if you can laugh about it and say, God, I really fucked that trade up.
Yeah.
You'll also get feedback and you'll see how others do things because they will share what they got right, what they got wrong. And before you know it, so I was just talking about this just at a Real Vision town hall, a live thing just now, explaining the power of, let's say it's a hub and spoke model. So I make a piece of content, I give it to 20, 30,000, 100,000 people, whatever it is. Okay, so that's one idea that gets shared. Now, a network of the same 20,000 people, if everybody shares one idea, there's 20,000 ideas. That's the power of a network. It is so incredibly life-changing once you figure that out.
All right. So let's go back to the topic of just starting a business. Have you learned anything about yourself? Like, how long have you been an entrepreneur now?
Well, if I exclude Global Macro Investor, but that was an entrepreneurial thing in itself. But the launch of Real Vision was 2014, so there's 10 years of Real Vision.
10 years, yeah. So what have you learned about yourself in 10 years through this journey?
I've learned I've got a very, I know we talk about this a lot flippantly, but it's true. I have a very high pain tolerance. I have a unshaking belief in my ability to manifest destiny. Okay. Doesn't mean it always works, but most of the time, if you live in the future and say, I want this to be successful, what do I need to happen to make it happen? And look backwards, it's much easier than trying to look at a path forwards. You know, what does it feel like to have a successful business? That feeling you want to create, and you start back from the beginning and work backwards to get to it. So I'm good at that. I am not very good with, I'm great with motivating and inspiring people. I'm not very good with having hard conversations with people. I kind of shy away from it. And if you're managing staff, I tend to leave things too late, bad behaviors or people who are not performing, because I don't like having hard conversations. So you have to kind of either learn to do that, which I've got better at doing, or at first you have to hire somebody who can help you do that by doing it. And I used to use a chief of staff, which was a game changer for me. But really it stopped me actually learning the skill that I needed to have, which was to be more direct.
That's interesting you say that, because it's very applicable in like relationships as well. Like if you, and then the truth is when you're starting a business, you're forming relationships with your partners, with your people who work with you, your employees, etc. But yeah, it is definitely a skill you need in life for sure. But yeah, if you can outsource it to someone in a business, I guess that helps a lot.
I also have learned, that you have to be very, very careful of partnerships.
Tell me more.
Well, I don't want to get too much into it, but what all seems great at first becomes very different down the track. When ideas morph, people's commitment changes. It's something, it always seems great to go into business with people. I would say you have to be careful in how you approach that. The other thing I was terrible with, I'm so trusting. And so legal agreements, you don't think about this shit. You just don't. But
my God, I think I'm way too similar to you. Like there's so much of the stuff you're saying resonates with me. It's crazy.
I mean, legal agreements, you're just like, yeah, sure, it's fine. And then you look back and you've realized you've been fucked.
Yeah.
And it's your own fault. And it's been my own fault with being way too trusting of anything or anybody, or just assuming that bad situation won't happen.
Yeah, because you're an optimist. At the end of the day, if you're the sort of person who's manifesting that success in the future, by definition, you're an optimist, right? And you're trying to make that path happen for you. So you're not going to look for all the holes in the legal docs, and that's boring as shit anyway. Going through that stuff, but obviously you should pay someone to do it. But it's just, yeah. I mean, I've definitely made similar mistakes.
The other thing is I've realized is I knew nothing about starting a business or how businesses were run. And it took a long time to start to realize it really matters who you hire. And we all say these things. We don't really know what it means. You always think you're hiring a good person. But people who have experience, who are fast at doing stuff, have experience for the right phase of the business, are game-changing. But we always end up hiring somebody, oh, he's got X, Y number of years experience doing this, working for this cool company. Right? That's not the experience you actually need, because you're a three-man shop and you've got to get shit done this week.
Yeah, you need, not only do you need people who understand where you're headed, you need people who can put their hands on deck and actually deliver some actual work.
And for this phase in the business, because later you'll need people who know how to manage more people or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you get stuck with people. And then what happens is I'm finding, and you know this, but you just don't know it fast enough or fully understand it, is that you are only as good as your worst person.
Oh,
if you've got somebody slow in your team, everybody ends up being slow.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't quite understand everything, everything gets dumbed down.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody just doesn't do details and leaves a mess behind, it's always there. And so you don't really realize that really the whole business lives and dies by the worst member.
That's interesting. These are really amazing insights, because you only get these from doing it, right?
Well, I mean, the benefit is that there is a lot of podcasts and books on this topic. You know, the best book of all business ever is The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Yeah, you told me about that one.
By Ben Horowitz, because it shows you it's not all unicorns. We're in our garage, we had this great idea, we ate pizza for a month, and we're all billionaires, right? That's not how the world works.
That sounds like the Big Short story as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the Big Short, I mean, people think that there are hacks. There aren't. It actually, it takes a lot. But when you see some of those very fast-moving, innovative, breakthrough companies from Silicon Valley, the reason being usually is that the people who are the team who starts it is incredibly accomplished, amazingly fast, and they're not learning core skills.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't be learning core skills on your shareholders' dime or on your own capital that you're injecting. That's a waste of everybody. For us to learn how to make bloody video or build a platform was dumb. We should have hired somebody who'd done it before, but we didn't. And so you spend more money than you should do. You move slower than you should do. The whole business is dragged down by the fact that none of you have the knowledge, and you're trying to figure stuff out that somebody else has figured out 5 years ago.
Interesting. I mean, I do think, though, it's a bit like when you're making that transition, though, from someone who wasn't an entrepreneur to starting. I think these are kind of things, it's like these things you have to go through, right? Like just that change of mindset and understanding all those things.
Well, you can go through that, but your team can't.
Right.
You can say, I've got the idea and I've got the vision. I know what I need to do. I don't know how to implement it. I need somebody who can build whatever. Let's say it's an option trading platform. Somebody who's done that, knows how to do it, and can do it really fast, but do it world class. I need somebody who can do this, this, and this. We don't. We tend to go, well, there's this guy, he's built a few things before. He could probably do it. Doesn't really understand options, but I can get him across the line. And that, before you know it, you've now completely handicapped yourself. When what you should do is say, who's the one guy who can do that? Now, it's all well and good us saying that. It's much easier when you're in Silicon Valley and you're backed by A16Z that you can pay for that. But that's the hard bit, is even if you realize these things, that can I put a crack team of the best 5 people in the world together to execute my idea? Yes, if you've got unlimited budget. Which is why you get a lot of these people coming out of universities, because they have a group in the university. They're all experts on something. and have the time and the energy to do it.
And they will know they can work together and they can get along.
While you might say, oh, I'm going to build this business, and what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of mates in the city who want to do something similar. Great. None of you have a fucking clue what you're doing now. You've now got 3 clueless people trying to build a business.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
It's so easy to do. This is this partner's idea as well that I talked about. It's the same thing. It's like what you're trying to do is find the fastest, best way of doing something. What you end up doing is the easiest way for you right today.
So does that mean your partners have to pretty much almost be completely siloed from you and do all the shit that you're not good at, that you don't want to touch, that you don't want to do? Is that the sort of partner that you want to have? Who complements you that way?
Yes. Yes.
I think the evidence that I've seen is that one of the best run companies, I'm not going to mention who it is, one of the best run companies I know has got 2 founders, or not, he's got a founder and a CEO, if you want to call it. They're completely opposite people. They know each other, known each other for years, but they're completely opposite and they do completely different things for the business. And that business is running fast.
Yeah. But everyone has to work at the same speed. If not, you've got a problem. There is a great psychological study. It's called, I think it's called Market Forces. And it's sorry, the dog's barking in the background. Market Forces says there's kind of 4 personality types. At the top is somebody called control, which is like a leader, a visionary, that person. They tend to be not great at detail. So I'm there. The next one alongside is influencer, i.e. a people person. So I fit within that bucket. I'm not great with detail. The person who's the opposite end, and I can't remember what they're called, is the perfect counterbalance. Idea, you give them the idea, they execute the idea. It's the person before you on this little weather vane clock is the person who you don't work well with. That's a person who wants to check every detail, who says, well, we need to double check every number here. But last time we did this, it didn't work. And what, are we going to do it again? Right? That doesn't work for my personality type. And so what you need to do is figure out what personality types the people are around you. Because if you don't match, you'll clash.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot to think about, for sure.
It is. I think that's the hardest bit is surrounding yourself by the people to make it successful.
Mm-hmm.
When what you tend to do is surround yourself by people that you think might make it easy today.
And then looking back, do you wish you did it sooner? Do you think you took the plunge sooner, or do you think it was the right sort of time in your life when you did it?
It was perfect timing. I just wish I'd learned. I think I probably wasted 5 years of the 10-year journey of Real Vision.
Right.
By having to learn stuff that I shouldn't have learned.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd made the mistakes in the people that we had. Stuff like that. I feel stupid thinking back.
I think you're being a bit harsh on yourself, to be fair.
No. I could have moved so much faster. I could have
So on that note, the world is changing very fast, as you've been telling the world on the whole exponential thesis, right? Is that going to change the way people even approach business and, growing companies? And, is it so disruptive that we just have to rethink everything?
So put it this way, I think OpenAI are using a powerful AI, let's call it a baby AGI, to build the AI products that they're launching today. Which is why 500 people can build 10 different product lines and disrupt everybody every 3 months. So the next version, ChatGPT 5, will have multi-agents. What that means is it can do multiple tasks at the same time, connect them. So I can show it the Interactive Brokers website and say, or Codebase or whatever it is, and say, just build this. And it knows the component parts. Okay, what the fuck does that mean for businesses in the future? If I'm using AI to build AI, how fast do businesses live and die? Now, it'll take a while before people figure this out, but things are going to change. So you either go with the technology now, or you go the opposite and go with humans, which is community, connections.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two avenues. You either lean into the technology side, or, you could have a travel business. And
everything's going to, I would have thought everything's still going to get augmented with AI, right? So I agree that there's that value of human connection and that value of the network. But ultimately, a network of people that is also augmenting their productivity with AI is still going to smash the crap out of anyone else.
Yeah.
Right? So there's always going to be a reason to use it now, right? We crossed the Rubicon, right? It's like, one of the things you and I do is how we communicate is over video, and that video goes one to many people, right? I'm developing a Raoul bot, which is trained on all of my Twitter feed, all of my YouTube, a whole bunch of stuff, including 100 books that I wanted it to understand that I think are important. It'll be a video version. So now media becomes a one-to-one experience. So you could have this conversation with a bot,
with my AI, and that will be within 6 months.
And that'll freak me out.
But then again, that changes everything that we understand about the world.
It is a bit scary.
It is.
It is. Scary.
It is. It's like, one of the reasons we built the product, the Exponentialists, that you're part of, is because there is so much happening that as humans, we just kind of need to understand where this is going so we can navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to think about building a business now and suddenly realizing it's disrupted in a year's time. Completely disrupted.
And I don't think there's enough people talking about it and just realizing just how impactful it's going to be,
No, because, when you speak to a mate who's not involved, they don't yet see it. It's because our job is to think about this stuff. You start to see it everywhere. But most people have no understanding. I mean, most people who work in a McDonald's have no understanding that within 5 years, there'll be more robot workers than human workers. Amazon is now more robots than humans.
Yes, so exactly. I'm bringing kids up in a world where robots are going to be their peers. They're going to be robots everywhere. It's just going to be part of their life. It's going to be normal that they're surrounded by robot workers and stuff.
Right? Well, it's easier for them because they'll grow up with it. It's like you grew up with television and you grew up with a mobile phone, right? I didn't grow up with a mobile phone. So it was a change, but they will grow up with it. It's harder for you and I.
But it's our job. But it's our job to guide them, though. So
you got no chance because you don't know.
They're going to guide us. They're going to guide us, basically.
Exactly. That's exactly the way it's going to be. Yeah. Much like you've shown your mum how to use a bloody iPhone or email or that's what your job is.
I hear that. It's true. I mean, my daughter showed me some app the other day that she'd been using to create little TikTok-y type videos. And she's just so proficient at it. I know. It's unbelievable. It's just so natural to them.
And they're so productive in stuff like that. Yeah. Well, you would go to it, we're like, how do I edit this? How do I do that? They just do it like, done.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, TikTok and Instagram, people are making billions of videos. Yet at Real Vision, we've got producers and editors and this and that. But on TikTok, people are making billions of them. And that's just a matter of the old world hasn't learnt from the new world yet.
Right. So okay, so anyway, I mean, it's been a great conversation as always with you. You really help me think about stuff that I haven't really thought about that deeply. What would be your kind of takeaway, really, So for anyone thinking about starting a business and pursuing a more purpose-driven life?
If you think you've got a purpose, then pursue it. Be flexible. It may not be where you end up going. Understand that the business is not you, so the success or the failure of the business is not your personality and an inherent flaw within you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business. It's a separate thing. It's a bet. It's like in a portfolio, you know. Mm-hmm. Your Microsoft position going up or down is not a reflection of your character. But that becomes very hard to separate. Very hard.
100%. I can feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, everybody struggles with that.
Yeah.
But it is incredibly rewarding. And I still, even though I've talked a lot about pain and difficulties, the journey of Real Vision is something I've loved, even though it was really difficult. If I look back now and go, blimey, we got this far? I never thought we'd get this far.
Mm-hmm.
And getting stopped in the street because we've actually changed lives was exactly why we set up the business. Yeah. So if you actually bother to celebrate a victory occasionally, it's good. It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
I've made a difference in this, spinning planet in the middle of the solar system. I'll have done something. And that's a good thing.
It's not like you're about to stop now either. You're going strong, right?
Exactly. It just feels like it's only just started. There's plenty to do.
So tell us, did you always want to do this in terms of running your own firm, or is it just something that you kind of fell into?
Well, definitely the latter. I when I joined Global Wall Street, I thought I would have the same job from the time I joined to the time I retired. I helped my former colleagues build a very large and successful business that I ultimately was unfortunately just not rewarded for. So decided to take action into my own hands. But specifically with respect to 42 Macro, I didn't even leave my prior shop with the expectation of starting a research company or a business. I actually left with the expectation of raising assets for an asset management firm. I was going to partner with Jake Weinig, the former CIO and CEO of Malachi Capital, and Kevin Littleton, who was a good friend of mine, who was Jake's protege at Goldman for a long time on the equity derivatives desk. And we were going to start a macro volatility hedge fund using some of the macro overlays, that I'm kind of known for in terms of regime segmentation across Global Wall Street. So we did a bunch of institutional meetings. You know how that process goes. You wind to dine folks for 6 months, and at the end of the day, they tell you need a track record. They give you a big check. And so
they have their dinner. They have their free dinner.
They had their free dinner. So it's a great experience. We learned a lot, and in terms of what it takes to get an asset management business off, institutional asset management business off the ground. So that's something that's still in the background. But the reason 42 Macro exists, and because that was going to be called 42 Capital Management, the reason 42 Macro exists was, okay, hey, we're not having a lot of success at raising funds as quickly as we would like. I have a family to feed. You have a so I was like, well, I'm great at research, so let me just start a research company that can maybe pay the bills in the interim while we continue to do these institutional client meetings. And kind of the rest is history, man. The business has really taken off, and it's been a real blessing to see the growth and reception that we've gotten, not just obviously with our clients and investors all around the world, but also with media partners and things of that nature. I think what we're doing has proven to be very successful and accurate, and it helps a lot of people make money and protect gains in financial markets. So, kind of almost by happenstance, we kind of left it to this business. It's doing a great job for our clients.
And but like any business, right? There's ups and downs, and just like a trading book or a trading portfolio, you get somewhat emotionally attached to the swings. So do you feel yourself like on that roller coaster that the business gives you the ups and downs, and do you find it affecting your mood? And if you do, how do you kind of cope with that?
A lot more so in the early days. We're a little bit over 3 years old now. Much less so now. When I first started, I really didn't know what to expect. Right, it was the first time I was running a business from soup to nuts. Right, and I brought a very large team and desk at a major Wall Street institution.
but I've never, well, not major, mid-major, I guess, mid-major Wall Street institution that we took from nothing to that size. And so I'm used to, kind of running this particular segment of the business, but I'm not necessarily used to running a broader business. We have vendors to pay and all this other stuff. So, I have great partners on that regard to kind of help me free up my time to continue focusing on what I do best for our clients on the macro risk management side of things. So, in terms of, being emotionally attached to all those swings, like at the beginning, again, you just don't know what to expect. It's the first time, anybody in my family has ever even started a business. We come from a long line of very poor people in our family who kind of were on the wrong outside looking in terms of, the capitalism and what it could do for you in terms of your families. And so, I didn't really have any mentors, at least in my family tree, that I could go look up to. But thank God I had a tremendous amount of mentors, either through the Yale Football Network or through like Global Wall Street Network that I could tap into and get a lot of advice. And I did get a lot of tremendous advice from a lot of wonderful people. And I just want to say thanks to anyone who's watching this that was very instrumental in that early part. But, in terms of the swings of the business, I think one thing I've learned over the last few years, to wrap this up, I've really learned to focus on the things that you can control and ignore everything else. When I started the business, I was focusing on everything. Then I started focusing on the things that I could control, but I would let the things that were out of my control affect me. Now I don't even let it affect me. I liken it to, like if you're building a great football team, U.S. football team, the number one thing, the teams that are typically successful, the teams that you see playing in January and February every year in the NFL, those are the teams that love practice. They love every single rep practice. They love competing in the weight room. They love competing in the conditioning room. And it's not about winning a championship. It's about winning today and making yourself better today. And I've really adopted that framework and mindset in terms of how I run my business here at 42 Macro.
That translates through to life though, right? I think if you think, how can I have the best day? How can I put my best foot forward today, right? In all parts of my life, in all aspects. I think that is kind of it's a great framework to live your life, and it's going to increase your chances of living a happier life, I would say.
Yeah, 100%, my friend. Yeah, no, it's about, setting small goals. And I think a lot of times, especially with new business owners, right? Like, we have these big lofty goals of, where we want to be in terms of revenue and profits, a multi-year time horizon. But the reality is, it's hard to accomplish big goals, but it's a lot easier when you break those big goals down into bite-sized goals that you can actually take a step forward towards achieving on a daily basis. And that's something that has really benefited me both, in terms of just obviously running the business, but also emotionally. It's de-stressor, and you just really set yourself up for a lot more sustained success if you're, kind of doing the little things right day after day after day after day. In my opinion, I think that's the most successful way to be, whether it be an athlete, a business owner, or someone in the military. Anytime you have a high-performing competitive environment, it's all about, how can you maximize the amount of time you spend, you doing those things.
Yeah, it's about action. It's about having actionable goals. Right? It's like if the goal's too big, you can't really action it today, right? So if you break it down, and you can always have some incremental progress because you are taking some action in that direction, then it adds up and it becomes cumulative, and then you see the results a year or two down the line. So do you think it's changed you as a person?
Yeah, of course. When you're responsible for, other people's livelihoods and their families' ability to, feed their family and keep a roof over their head, there's a certain amount of stress and respect that comes from that. And not in terms of respect for me, but the respect I have to have for them on a daily basis in terms of the effort that I put out and the intensity with which, I perform, my duties. And so, once you have that, it's very easy in our business, right? Global Wall Street is a me first kind of business. I've seen the worst of that in my career in terms of, kind of how greed can really, break apart great teams and all that kind of stuff. But, fortuitously, you have learned from other people's mistakes in that regard. And that's something that, we've really thought about, not bringing here in terms of 42 Macro with respect to, just respect to taking care of everyone. I think this is, it's very easy to, again, in an industry like this, for someone who's, the face of the firm, the guy pumping out the research and whatnot at a business like mine, thinking, okay, it's Darius Dale's show. I'm the reason we are successful. You notice, I think hopefully you notice this in reviewing our research, but I almost never write the word I. Certainly not in any of our published research. I barely write the word I on Twitter. I always say, hey, we appreciate you, we thank you, we this, we that, because I realize, it takes a village and it takes a successful team to have a successful business. In my opinion, I don't think you can go at it alone in today's world where, the specificity and the I don't know word looking for here, but all these different roles that you have in the business, whether it be finance and capital investment or marketing and all these types of things. These are very highly specialized roles where if you don't have the right people in place, you're going to not be successful at those particular functions in your firm. And so I think it's very important for leaders like us to really acknowledge and empower the people that are working for us. And really, I don't even like saying for us, but it's really they're working with us because we're all striving towards the same objective.
Yeah, that's a great message. Yeah. And, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us your kind of insights from having done it and still doing it very, very well, I may add. Any last takeaway you want to give the audience?
Yeah, last takeaway. Just as someone who's watching this who may be considering starting a business or just started a business, I like to think about this. One of my favorite sayings is like, when you're running a business, remember the rule of 0.5. If you're trying to forecast good outcomes, multiply them by 0.5. And if you're trying to forecast costs, divide that by 0.5. And you'll sleep a lot better at night understanding that, hey, look, success, when you start a business, we all see this linear path forward higher, particularly the types of people who start businesses, because myself, you yourself, we're the kinds of people who've been very successful from an early age on a very linear ride, right? It's been a 45-degree angle of success for most of my entire life. And so, business is a lot harder. Obviously, we've had a tremendous amount of success the first few years here at 42 Macro. We're really blessed and really grateful for that. I just want to, shout out to my Lord and Savior for that, because I'm really grateful for that. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware that, that chart that you see where it's like, this is what you think success looks like, and this is what it actually looks like. That is so true. And that to me is one of the most beautiful parts of running a business or running an organization is kind of learning from all those different opportunities to learn and implement, new ideas and whatnot, because everything you do is not going to work. But as long as you're continuing to focus on the things that you can control, blocking out the noise of everything else, and then obviously, sticking to your and working towards your small objectives, your small goals, I think you're going to put yourself in a great opportunity to be successful. And guess what? If you're not successful, guess what? That is a success to me, because starting something as significant as a business and ultimately failing as a business, you're going to learn a lot that you can take to your next life as well. And so I think a lot with respect to human beings in general, we tend to only learn from our mistakes and only learn from other people's mistakes. It's very hard to learn a lot when you're being very successful. And so I just want to make sure everyone's aware that, even if you quote unquote fail, you're still being successful. You're still not necessarily failing, because there's a lot you can learn to take into your next chapter of your life. So appreciate you and Brian for having me on.
Yeah, it's a great message, man. I appreciate you too. Thanks a lot. I'll catch you soon.